Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our first Ideas to Invention webinar, spotlighting young inventors in California. My name is Chinwe Ohanale Agu, pronouns she and her, and I serve as the Senior Program Manager for the Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property, which is a Michelson 20MM Foundation initiative. Today's webinar is the first event in the celebration of IP Awareness Month, which California is celebrating for the first time this year, thanks to the passage of Senate Resolution 106. We are super excited to kick things off with this incredible program because it allows us to demonstrate that invention is something that all people of all ages can do. But most importantly, it's also an opportunity to show what the young people are already doing. They can show us not only where the biggest challenges are, but also identify some of the solutions. Now, the objective of diversifying innovation and the entrepreneurship ecosystem by ensuring that more people are aware of the value of their creations is at the heart of the Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property. We are committed to democratizing IP education to ensure that all people from all backgrounds are able to identify their IP, register it, and build generational wealth for themselves and their community. That's why we are committed to partnering with educational institutions in the K through 12 space, 2- and 4-year institutions, as well as organizations like Lemos and MIT, to make sure that people of all ages are exposed to intellectual property education. To get the word out about the value of IP, we must meet people where they are as they're creating to ensure that their stories are told. Now, we don't do this alone. The Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property has some incredible partners in this space who we'd like to thank for helping make today's webinar possible, namely California IP Alliance and US IP Alliance. Now, it's our hope that this is a really engaging conversation for you, as well as inspiring and informative. And for all those comments and thoughts that you have, you can put them in the discussion. You can put that discussion in the chat. Interact with one another. Share how this conversation is inspiring you. But for the questions that you have, especially for the Q&A, we ask that you use the Q&A button. That way we can keep track of those questions and get back to them during that section. We also appreciate your feedback because we want to make sure that these kinds of programs meet your needs. And so we have some polls that we're going to mix in to the programming here. So hopefully you'll be able to engage with us in that way and give us some feedback. Now, before I jump into the program, which is very exciting, I do want to highlight that this is one of 2 webinars that we are hosting in the month of October. The second webinar will be spotlighting students from Calistoga High School, and that's going to be taking place October 22nd, 2024. And there'll be a link that we're dropping in the chat now if you'd like to register for that event. Keep it on your calendar so that it's fresh and ready to go. All right, so as I mentioned, we couldn't do this without the support of partners and, of course, the foundation that lets us do this work. And so we'd love to hear a few words from some of our partners. Now, first, our co-host and partner, California IP Alliance, is represented today by Eric Johnson. Eric is an intellectual property strategist and licensing professional with 20+ years experience, recognized by IAM's Strategy 300 World's Leading IP Strategists in 2021. Eric has represented and worked closely with the University of California, San Diego's Office of Innovation, as well as Orange, I think is how you pronounce it, for the development, execution, and growth of licensing initiatives to drive global business and development across diverse markets. Eric, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Chinwe. I'm excited to kick off this webinar today and briefly introduce the California IP Alliance, or CAIPA for short. As a nonprofit, the CAIPA was founded on 3 pillars and the goal of making IP aware, the goal of making the opportunities of IP available to all Californians. The 3 pillars are awareness and education, greater IP ecosystem collaboration, as well as promoting diversity and inclusion within the IP profession. I think today's webinar kind of exemplifies these three pillars by following the Mira Loma Invent team and the collaboration they had with patent attorney Mark Montague to protect their idea, as well as the exposure this provided to the students to the different career paths in IP, ranging from STEM, business, and legal. And with that, I'd like to thank the Michelson IP team for putting this event together and hand it back to you, Chinwei.
Thanks so much for your comments, Eric. So, we can't have California IP Alliance without US IP Alliance. And the sort of moving to that driving force behind the national effort, representing US IP Alliance is Mauricio Uribe. Mauricio is the chair and data privacy and protection practice group, and the former chair of the software IT and electrical practice group at Kenobi Martins. Mauricio is well versed in patent prosecution matters and portfolio development, especially in the software, electrical, and telecommunications technology spaces. For more than 15 years, Mauricio has engaged in numerous licensing strategy and license negotiations for various clients, including standard essential patent licensing matters. Mauricio's helped clients set up licensing programs, identify and cultivate essential patent assets, develop responses to licensing offers, and develop holistic licensing programs. He's a frequent lecturer on licensing topics, including data privacy and protection, standards essential patent licensing programs. The list goes on. Mauricio is honestly such a key individual in this space. So Mauricio, we'd love to hear a couple of words.
Chinwei, thank you. And first of all, Mauricio Uribe I'm on the board of directors of US IPA, and I do get the privilege of providing a few comments. And I'd like to start with a congratulations to California IPA. The fact that we are recognizing today, October 1st, as the beginning of October IP month is an amazing accomplishment. I'm very happy to be here to celebrate, and really can't think of a better event to kick off a month-long celebration than doing some IP education with this group. So first of all, congratulations to all our attendees. Thank you for joining. I hope this is a great event for you, and that it is inspiring. And in addition to what Eric said, California IPA represents the same three pillars as US IPA. One of the great hallmarks of US IPA is a concept called the IP network of networks. And it really is where organizations collaborate for the greater good and the promotion of IP. And really, I can't think of a better event than today, where we have all the representatives from these organizations working together for probably one of the foremost and the most important, which is making sure the ideas to inventions, that IP education is there. So with that, welcome. I hope this is great. And should anybody need any advice, you're always welcome to contact me. That's something that's very important for me. So enjoy today's program, and thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mauricio. Finally, I'd like to invite my boss and Chief Operating Officer of Michelson 20mm Foundation, Mira Loma, to share a few words. Mira provides strategic oversight to the Michelson 20mm Foundation's portfolio of initiatives and leads its operations. She oversees the deployment of 20mm's philanthropic capital to help the foundation realize its vision of advancing an equity-centered agenda in support of Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and low-income individuals pursuing post-secondary education. Before joining Michelson, Mira was a middle school humanities teacher in East Los Angeles. And as a first-generation college student, graduate, she is committed to supporting promising students from historically marginalized and disadvantaged communities access equitable opportunities to higher education.
Thank you so much, Chinwei. It's a pleasure to be here amongst all of you. And thank you, Eric and Mauricio, for joining us today and the partnership that you've provided. Just a little bit about the Michelson 20mm Foundation, short for 20 million minds, the number of higher education students in the nation. So just to give a little bit of background, Michelson 20mm is a private nonprofit foundation that was founded in 2010, thanks to the generous support of renowned spinal surgeon inventor and philanthropist, Dr. Gary Michelson, and his wife, Alia Michelson. Since its founding, Michelson 20MM has been committed to advancing an equity agenda that supports historically underrepresented and underserved individuals. And we believe that higher education and employment opportunities should be available to all. And to that end, we're committed to addressing and overcoming the systemic barriers that hinder communities from fully thriving. To do so, we work across 5 verticals: digital equity, smart justice, student basic needs, open educational resources, and the subject that we're all here to talk about, intellectual property. The Michelson IP Institute has been a key initiative of Michelson 20MM, and it's truly my absolute pleasure to be here today to kick off Intellectual Property Awareness Month with you all, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Myra. So thank you so much for the comments from all of our supporters and partners. But you know, let's get to the moment we've all been waiting for, right? I'm so excited to introduce you to the incredible panelists we have assembled today. First, we have Shreya Srikanth. Shreya is a 12th grader at Mira Loma High School, which is located in the Sacramento area. She is a lover of science, and of all the classes she's taken, her favorite classes are genetic data science and bioengineering. Probably because of how much she enjoyed these courses, she hopes to become a genetic researcher in the future. She was also one of the student attendees at the US IP Day in Sacramento and was present for the passage of Senate Resolution 106, where she shared with me that it was really exciting to be part of that legislative process. Next is Jiva Karthi. Jiva is a junior, also at Mira Loma, and he is deeply passionate about all things tech, physics, and chemistry. He loves programming, creating little gadgets, taking things apart just to put them together or accidentally breaking them. His words, not mine. His curiosity drives him to constantly invent little devices that help him or just seem cool. He enjoys helping others with their tech issues or school subjects. When he's not immersed in these activities, you can probably find him with a book in his hand. Despite how tech savvy he is surprisingly fond of analog technology and still draws engineering designs by hand, preferring physical books, and also likes to carry a little notebook in his pocket. Last but certainly not least, we are joined by Mr. Mark Montague of Cohen, Leibowitz, and Latman, PC. Mr. Montague, or Mark, is the head of the firm's patent group. Mark is a patent attorney registered to practice before the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and has over 30 years of experience counseling large, medium, and small-sized companies in a variety of technical fields. Now, Mark's practice focuses on advising clients on the protection of inventions in the US and abroad, as well as defending clients against charges of patent infringement, conducting patent due diligence studies, such as patent infringement analysis and patent validity analyses, as well as overseeing other attorneys and personnel in the firm's patent group. So please join me in welcoming our student and attorney panelists to the stage. So, as I said, this is the part that I'm excited about, but we're going to start with the students. So actually, before we jump into that, we have a quick poll because we do want to know who's in the room. So 3 quick questions. Who are you? How familiar are you with this space? And how important do you think this conversation is? All right, while you're noodling on those questions, for the students, what made you join the Invent team at your school? I don't know about you, but that wouldn't have been the first thing I thought of when I started high school. So we'd love to hear what made you join?
Hi, I'm Jiva. I was a freshman when I joined the Invent team. And I think the thing that really made me want to join was honestly the really cool idea that the Invent team already had. And I saw an opportunity to make like a real difference in my community, which I didn't really have the opportunity to do before. And I had never like really seen myself inventing something. So I thought it might be something that I tried out. And I'm so glad that I did because it really changed um, how I saw the world. And I think it really helped me get through my freshman year of high school, and it still helps me to this day.
Awesome. Shreya?
Yeah, hi, my name is Shara, and I was in my sophomore year when we started the Invent team, and I was one of the people who actually created the Invent team and like submitted the original proposal. And so I guess like rather than joining, I just like me and my team, we discovered it and we thought that it sounded like such a cool opportunity to like to get funding for a project that we thought would make difference in the world and then actually get to design a prototype and do work with it. And so we were just really excited by that idea. So we thought we'd take a shot and apply for it. And then when we got in, we were just so excited and we broadcasted it to the school and then we got so many fun, innovative people joining, like for example, Jiva.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing even how it started at your school, and the fact that you kind of petitioned for it. So once, you're in this program or you've set up this program, how did you come up with the invention, that you were going to kind of focus on?
So we had a lot of brainstorming sessions. I remember in the beginning, we made like a whole ideas document and it was like 20 pages or something of just different things that we were brainstorming. And um, we had a couple of different people working on it. And so everyone had really unique different ideas based on their experiences and then what they saw as problems in their community. But then when we were going through them, we would kind of rate the ideas that we were coming up with based on how feasible they were, how much of an impact we thought they would have, and whether we thought that they would fit like what we need to be able to do for this program specifically. And how innovative they are, like how new they are and what they bring to the table. And so after going through all the ideas that we had with that in mind, we ended up kind of all of our different perspectives meshed together to create like what we ended up creating, which I think Jiva can talk about.
Yeah, please, Jiva, tell us, what did you all create?
So yeah, we had the idea of coming up with basically a smart dog collar, which could see the ground in front of dogs as they walked and warn the owner if the temperature is really hot, because um, if people here haven't been to California, it gets really hot in the valley in the summer. And in fact, it doesn't even need to get that hot for the concrete to actually get hot enough to burn a dog's paw. So after I think a lot of our team members had experienced this issue because a lot of us were dog owners, and so we decided to try to do something about it.
So it's really interesting how you went from 20 pages of ideas to this, particular idea. But I'm also wondering, how much iteration did you have to kind of go through before you came to your final, project or your final product?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of iteration. So we were all super excited that like we had been accepted to this program on like the first meeting, and we were like, wow, this is super cool. And then there was like that one thing we were like, wait a minute, how are we actually gonna do this? So over the course of how many ever weeks it was, we started with brainstorming, and then we basically followed the invention timeline, which was brainstorming, prototyping, and then revising. And there was a lot of revision. So what we would do is we would have our prototype, we would go around and test it, and then we would be like, all right, so this is what went good, this is what went bad. Let's see how we can improve this. And we go back to brainstorming, try to improve those issues while keeping the good qualities that were already there. And we would create a new version, and then we would do that. And in fact, we actually did this multiple times for the software and the hardware independently. For even like mesh the hardware and the software together, and then we had to do this again for the meshing, like the interface in between the two.
That sounds incredible. I mean, I can't imagine doing it now, let alone in high school and with a team, right? How many people were part of your invent team?
I think it was probably around 18 people. most of them were juniors at the time, so they're all graduated now, but yeah.
That's incredible. And so you iterate this idea over time, and it sounds like there's two components, your hardware and your software piece. At what point do you decide, maybe we need to file something to protect this?
Honestly, I think growing up, a lot of us had heard, especially being like in California, really close to Silicon Valley, we had heard a lot about patenting and like it was really more of an adult thing. Like you're in a real job and you get to patent what you work on for us. And so it was a little bit far removed from most of my life, at least. Um, but then when we were designing this, we thought we're thinking of a lot of innovative stuff here. Like we're designing a lot of new things that haven't been thought of before. And additionally, the Levelson MIT program that we were working with was really good about giving us the opportunities. Like they were the ones who introduced us to Mr. Montague. And so we thought we have these resources available and we have these connections that we can make. And it seemed important to us to protect the innovative ideas that we were coming up with because we were working really hard on them. And we wanted to make sure that we would get credit for all that work that we were doing.
That's really amazing. So it sounds like being kind of close to Silicon Valley, it was kind of in the back of your mind that if you're going to work hard on something, you create something that, might be new or novel, you should probably protect it. And so it sounds like Lemelson MIT helped you partner with Mark or Mr. Montague. What was it like working on the application with him?
It was really exciting for us because we were really happy to meet him. He was very well informed about all the processes. And I remember the first meeting we had with him, we didn't really know going into it what the patent would look like or like what the different steps were. So we came in with a bunch of questions and I remember I was taking notes when he was explaining the process to us and I had like 4 pages full of notes or something. He just explained it so well in depth to the point where after we were done, I think we were all like pretty much experts on at least knowing what a patent would look like and how to make it and what different things to include. And then over time, like we started revising it, we started writing the drafts and like figuring out what kind of information we wanted to put in. And he was just really, really helpful about letting us know like how specific we have to be, what to include and what not to include. And so I think it was really amazing to be able to work with someone who had such a wide range of knowledge about the subject.
Glowing praise for you, Mark. And it would be wonderful to hear, from your perspective, what was it like working with the students?
Well, welcome and thank you for having me as a panelist. It's a great pleasure and honor. Working with high school students and in particular this Invent team in Mira Loma, had to look it up and find out where you guys lived being on the East Coast. You're at an age which I think is practically ideal for creativity and inventing. You're not jaded. There's some serious idealism, which is wonderful. When people say it can't be done, don't ever say that. And the high school range and age, and hopefully it stays with all of you through college and beyond, is just thrilling. The creativity, the different ideas just keep on pouring out. And not to talk about patents, but patent is not to cover a single thing. You're looking to cover the invention, which is more than the object and its physical embodiment. And once you become aware of that, a lot more variations and features were added to the application. the other wonderful part about this experience is, uh, uh, to be honest, I'm always impressed about the quality of writing that today's high school students are able to create as opposed to many decades ago, at least for myself. And between that and the creativity, it's always a pleasure reviewing your drafts or your ideas. And it makes talking about patents and the contents of the patent application and its purpose and function. It's not a thing. Uh, well, it's meant to be, sort of figuratively speaking, a living thing that really is about the invention. And I think you guys get it, all of you. So it's just wonderful. And the 4 pages of notes was probably based upon the feedback that I was getting from all of you and the questions. Trust me, there are sometimes clients of companies where it's very bland and short, and a yes no conversation, which is really not going to work in the invention world.
That's amazing. And I'm curious, is this the first invent team you've partnered with, or how did you get involved in, working with invent teams and supporting programs like this?
So probably maybe a better experience than some, in that it was very personal. Um, it was in my own hometown here in the suburb, one of the suburbs of New York City, in a village we are, and where everybody knows each other. And my then very young children were in elementary school and maybe younger. And from their friends and older siblings, it actually got back to the high school science teacher that I was a patent attorney. And they uh, were part of the Lemelson Invent team. And they came to me, started talking about, hey, can we get a patent for this? And that was the original roots. That was back in 2007, so 17 years ago. And uh, I'll get ahead of myself, but after getting a patent for them, um, I later learned from the foundation that it was actually the first patent that was procured by a Lemelson Invent team, and that was sort of nice. I'll just mention the invention because uh, it was something that really checked off all the different boxes, but it was about sort of a kit for a wheelchair that allowed the occupant to deploy sort of dual ramps that were very thin and lightweight in order for the person with some difficulty, but to surmount a curb that didn't have a cutout or a ramp. And uh, one of the high schoolers actually had personal experience with family members in wheelchairs. So, it was something that was a problem that they encountered, and they sought for a solution. So that was sort of a nice experience back then. And now I'm looking forward to hearing back from the patent office and waiting for your application to be officially examined.
What a great and full circle moment, being the first Lemelson patent and now continuing that journey on with Mira Loma here in California. So I'm actually curious, hopping back to the students really quickly, obviously hearing a little bit from Mark and his experience working with you all. Was there anything that surprised you about working with Mark?
Yeah. I think one of the things that really surprised me was how, like, I don't know how to phrase it. I think it was just how like he explained it. It was explained in like a really intuitive way that we could all understand. And like I'd always seen patents as like Shreya said, like this super crazy thing that only adults do. And I thought it would be like super complicated and like we'd have a really hard time doing it. But no, he explained it in a really intuitive way. And like I got the watered down version. I was in the actual call. I got it from one of my friends. Like I think I actually got Shreya's notes. Um, but even looking at that with like obviously some information was cut out, I could still understand it because it was explained in such an intuitive way that like I could just understand it, which wasn't how I expected it at all.
And now kind of, oh, sorry, did you want to add something to that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think Jiva like basically summed it up pretty well. Like the most surprising thing about it was that it was, like he said, so intuitive because um the way it was structured just made sense. Like obviously you would talk about this and then like explain what your product is and then what's special about it. It didn't seem as hard as we'd always thought it would be.
And now that you've kind of gone through the invention process and you've gone through, preparing a patent application, do you think that it's something that you'd want to do again in the future?
I think I have done it again. So I feel like in my experience, once you do it the first time, it just everything makes sense from that point on. Like you know the steps and you know how to format it. And so having that knowledge, learning it from this program, basically I feel like if I ever want to make a patent again, I'm basically set for life.
That's amazing. Jiva, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is something that I would want to do again. In fact, it's actually changed like where I was headed in terms of my career, like what I wanted to do. Like originally I was like I want to go into like medicine, but now I'm probably gonna head for a more like STEM or engineering oriented field. So yeah, I think it's definitely had an impact on like what I want to do.
That's incredible, and that's a really big shift. So it sounds like this program and this experience really had kind of a long-lasting impact on the both of you. Um, I'd love to kind of hop back to you, Mark. I mean, you mentioned earlier that one of the things that surprised you was the quality of the writing of the students, but was there anything else that surprised you or stood out in your experience with the Mira Loma Invent team?
Um, well, I deal with high school kids, with the volunteer from time enough that each team has its certain charm and wisdom. You guys, um, and this actually maybe being from California, perhaps a little more mellow than some of the East Coast points, but that's not lack of enthusiasm. In fact, there was a lot of that. Um, Actually, yes, beyond the creativity and expanding and thinking out of the box, um, you really all all of you who have spoken during the meetings that we've had, very confident, comfortable in one's own skin. Really, suspect you're sort of at the high end of that and continue with it. I think it'll serve everybody fabulously in college and beyond to be confident. I mean, you have to have done your homework and know what you're talking about, and all of you do. Um, so that really made talking so much easier because whether you're 16 or 17 years old, or maybe a few 18-year-olds, um, to be honest, it's as easy as talking to much older, experienced people in various industries. And age is really not relevant when it comes with that. You have to know what you're talking about, but being able to be a good speaker, public speaker especially, is such a great quality. And I just sense that immensely from the Mira Loma students. I'm going beyond the inventing skills, of course, because they've got that pretty down pat.
Well, it sounds like these glowing recommendations are going in both directions, and justifiably so. Um, so one other question for the students about your invention. What do you think is next? Yeah, you've come up with this invention that keeps dogs safe from sort of like the hot concrete, right? And you filed this patent that's making its way through the process. So have you all thought about what's next for this particular invention? What maybe you'd like to do with it or where it might go?
Last year there were like a few ideas thrown around about like actually turning this into like a legitimate product. But we like started thinking about it, but I think with the majority of this year, I don't think it's a little bit harder to do, especially with the majority of the team having graduated and gone to different colleges. There's only three of us from the original Invent team left at like Mira Loma High School now, and one's Shreya, one's me, and then one is Sid. He's not here. So I think it's a little bit more difficult, but it was something that we considered last year. But right now, I think we're happy with where we are. Shreya, do you have anything to add on that?
Um, yeah, basically, I think we're all very interested in taking it further. It's just for that we do need more funding. So we've basically been focusing on like finding other opportunities to get more funding for it because that's kind of difficult to get. But I do think that we have, like Jiva said, a lot of the people from the original Invent team no longer go to the school, but we have recruited other people who weren't part of it to like kind of come on to the project and carry it on. So I'm going to be a graduating senior this year, but I'm pretty confident in Jiva and all the other underclassmen that we have here at Mira Loma that they'll find a way to, once we do get more funding, which we're working on this year, they'll find a way to carry on the project and hopefully turn it into a real product because I really want to see that happen.
That's awesome. I love the continuity as well. You know, it's like one team came in, invented, worked on the patent, and now you're passing on the torch to see where else it can go. That's really awesome. Um, so a couple of sort of final questions for you. So same question posed to both the students and Mark. What's something you wish you could tell other students or attorneys about this program or about why it's special or why maybe they should consider participating?
I think some people, children, teenagers, and adults are just scared of the concept of inventing and the word patent and all those things. I I would encourage it for almost pretty much anybody. It lets people think out of the box, an overused phrase, but it is valid and relevant here to try to experiment and do things different. Don't be afraid to fail. And, we don't want to get an F on an exam, but when you have a challenge, a technological challenge, whether it's electrical, mechanical, chemical, software, and you're not going to get it right the first time. In fact, that's completely unrealistic. And I think people who are scientists and engineering uh, uh, minded, they understand that, and it lets them deal with the realities of moving out of one's parents' home on their own and dealing with real world experiences. And we all make tons and tons of mistakes, and mistakes are good. They allow us an opportunity to learn without making a mistake or trying to get something to work or to invent. without ever having to do that, that's just an unfortunate limitation. And inventing is definitely a significant component of that. There's other areas, I'm sure, that could serve similar purposes, but inventing definitely fills that nook, in a sense, to uh, you know try things out. And to be honest, people get frustrated. It's not going to work perfectly the first time around. As I've seen from other students and my own children, they're frustrated, they work hours and hours, they complain. And I said, well, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You learn, and next time around, it may be a little bit better. So it's really about everything, sort of a life skill in a sense.
Love that.
Yeah, I can go next. This kind of ties into a question I saw from Miss Esther Brooks. Hi. She asked if the Inventing project made it into my college applications. I will say right now, yes, it did. It is up there, but not just in like the in the sense where I wrote it as an achievement or like a recognition or something that I got. It's in my essays too, actually, because I feel like I just learned so much going through that program and having that opportunity. I found out that we were selected as a school to receive the grant in my going into my sophomore year. And I'm like halfway through my senior year right now, and I still feel like I'm getting so much out of the program, still like even now. I think as a high school student, it's very hard to get the resources and the connections that a lot of the time are really helpful when you're trying to create a project like this and you're trying to design something. Um, just because first you need funding, then you need connections, and it's just really hard to get all that stuff on your own, which is why we were all over the moon when we found out that we would be able to do it through the Lemelson MIT Foundation. But that was just the invention side of it. That was the reason we all started. But then through the program, we learned so much about managing logistics. We had to do this thing. It was the mid-grant technical review. It was something we had to hold at our school, and we had to present how far we had come in our project up to that point. And managing the logistics for that and planning the events and inviting all the people to our school and then actually presenting it was an experience that taught me at the time so much. I learned about public speaking. I learned about how to plan stuff. I learned about how to like manage events, how to lead people. Um, I think in general, the experience was just such a big learning moment for me, and it made up a lot of who I became in the future. And it was honestly a huge confidence booster because I feel like through everything I learned, I started believing that I myself was just more capable than I had thought before. Like I realized that I can do all this stuff. So yeah, I would recommend for sure. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so adding on to what Shreya was saying, I think I definitely learned those things as well. But on top of that, I think I was a freshman, so this was like even more mind-blowing to me. Like this is my first year of high school. I was actually really reserved coming into freshman year. I didn't really talk to that many people. I had like a few friends from middle school who came to the same high school as me. Didn't like reach out to anyone else. Um, but I think it's just like the first time I truly realized that like mistakes were like the thing that actually taught you to um they're like they actually taught you things. Like I know like I before that I kind of just thought like, oh yeah, that's just what adults say. You have to get an A on your test. But I think with this program I truly learned that like mistakes are what you need to learn. It's like whenever like other problems came up like academically or with like little side projects that I did, it like really kept me like going. It was like the mindset that I learned from this project or like program. And honestly, the invention process, like the brainstorm, prototype, and revision steps, I think it can be applied everywhere. And I think I've used it like in so many different places where it wasn't like really meant for it. But yeah, this program is definitely like it helped me increase my confidence. It like to let me do public speaking. Like imagine being at the end of your freshman year and presenting your project at like MIT all the way across the country, which is like a huge deal to me. But yeah, like it really increased my confidence. I learned a lot about public speaking. And on top of that, I think it gave me like a framework for how to deal with problems in the real world, not just like in like the own little environment that like most high schoolers deal with. So yeah.
I'm sure I speak for a lot of the audience that it's just incredibly encouraging just to hear both of you talking about the transition or the transformation rather that you kind of went through by being part of this program. And the way that you've been able to communicate about your invention and who you are as people is absolutely incredible and inspiring. And I mean, you're talking about things that some adults still struggle with well into the rest of their lives. And you're talking about it as young high school students and how this, you know, this process has given you a model for thinking about your life. And so know that you're not just inspiring students right now. I'm sure there are lots of adults that feel inspired as well. And so this, it's just so amazing to hear sort of where you started and where you ended and how important this program has been for you. So the last question I'm going to ask um, to the students before we hop into any Q&A in our quick poll. What would you say to a young person who said that they didn't believe they could be an inventor?
You know, I've heard that one before from a couple little kids. I think people overestimate the difficulty of what it means to be an inventor because I guess watching it from afar, you can think, wow, they're doing such cool things. I could never do that. But speaking from experience, being an inventor, it's not a skill that you have to be born with or like naturally talented at. Really, all you need is a cause that you're truly passionate about and something that you want to create, just a little bit of creativity. And what I've found is that any skill that you need to make what you want to happen, to invent what you want to create, any skill can be learned. And so, what I would say is that if you truly believe that you want to create something, you should go for it because there's really nothing holding you back other than your own doubts.
What I think that what I've learned from this that like I would tell someone is not to like look at the end goal because a lot of times that makes it seem really daunting. Like if you tell someone, hey, it's the start of the year right now, it's August, and by like June, you need to have a completely finished prototype that can detect the temperature in front of a dog and it should be able to just warn the owner. And someone would freak out. They would be like, how am I supposed to do that? There's only a year. And I think the best thing that really like got me through like the entire process without it feeling completely overwhelming was just going like one day at a time, like one step at a time. Don't focus on the entire process, but instead you break it up into like these little things. And it's a lot more like it's a lot easier to just look at a single part of a project rather than the entire thing. And there's a lot of times where I worked a lot with the software. There's a lot of times when there's like this one random error in this one random file somewhere, and you're like, where is this error and why is it going wrong? But there's like no, like, I don't think I've ever been more satisfied than like spending like 4 hours trying to find this one bug and then just solving it and like it all works perfectly. So it's really rewarding. And instead of looking at like the entire big picture, just take it one step at a time, take it one day at a time, and eventually you'll get there.
I think that's a great place for us to end. Take it one step at a time and you'll get there. I think that is something that we can all apply to our lives, whether we are inventors or not. Thank you so much to our panelists, honestly, for this amazing conversation. I want to acknowledge and applaud the Mira Loma High School. Um, the supervising educators, the whole student invent team, Mark, and our wonderful student panelists, Shreya and Jiva. I think we can all agree that this combination of efforts from the individual to the institutional created an incredible outcome. And for some, they may be looking at the patent that is pending. But really, I think after this conversation, you realize it's the mindset of the young people that, you know, we're listening to. These are the people that are going to take care of the future. And I think I'm far more comfortable now than I was before this conversation, because you all are so incredible and so inspiring. So thank you so much for this session. I don't know, I feel inspired to go out and invent something now. So thank you so much. Before we start the Q&A, and also to give people some time to drop any questions into the poll there, we have another poll to check in, make sure you're still with us, although I don't know how you could not be with us with such an engaging conversation. So just a couple, 3 questions. And let's see if I know we have one question here. All right. So feel free to drop in, any questions you have. But this first question is for you, Mark. How do we encourage more lawyers to assist young people to protect their IP?
So I assume I'm going to verbally answer that versus typing out an answer.
Please.
Well, that's always a tough thing, is partly volunteering, partly the demographics, and it's about intellectual property too. I think the programs that you've talked about when you introduced the organizations, the state, the national, local levels, the school district, that the more programs that are around that solicit different industry groups for assistance, that will increase the numbers for sure. Staying quiet is generally not a good idea. I'm not an expert, surely, in getting people to volunteer and to help out. That's a tough industry. But I think seeing the benefits as it's illustrated here also could definitely encourage. To be fair, a lot of law firms would be happy to give pro bono services. A lot of the pro bono services that firms give are often in other areas. In the old days, it's now a long time ago, like the 9/11 sort of victims and folks, firefighters and others who have gotten sick, among other things, for whatever the case is. Those get a lot of the attention, as they should. Here in intellectual property, it's a little bit of a challenge because it's different, but I think there's an immense amount of opportunity for growth. Maybe getting a marketing firm to help out could help that, but that's my thoughts.
Thank you for answering that question for us, Mark. Well, we are winding down and I don't see any other questions. So I will say I hope that you all agree that today's discussion was both insightful and inspiring. And I also hope that you walked away from today's session informed and hopefully better equipped to support initiatives like this at your school, or be the solution and volunteer and support a local program or team. Now, Ideas to Invention was a collaboration between our organization, Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property, as well as California IP Alliance. And again, this is part of IP Awareness Month. And so we're happy that California passed Senate Resolution 106, and this is the first year that we're celebrating and that we can celebrate by highlighting these students on the first day, right? And just put the spotlight on the incredible work that they're doing. We again love to thank our partners, California IP Alliance, US IP Alliance, as well as Lemelson MIT, right, who put this program together. And also supported us as we push forward for that Senate resolution. Now, this is just the beginning, and so we hope you will follow us along as we continue to spotlight everyday IP heroes like Shreya and Jiva with our next webinar, which is taking place on October 22nd. And I think that that'll be another inspiring discussion with the students. The other thing we do want to highlight is that at the beginning of November on the 7th, we'll be hosting an in-person event in the Crenshaw area, and that will launch a different series with the same objective called Protect Your Story, where we highlight how intellectual property intersects with different industries and impacts the California economy. With this, we hope to elevate local IP heroes and empower those who are on the rise with the inspirational stories and educational resources. That event will be the Food, Culture, and IP Summit, and it's a full day event. So if you are in the area, I would encourage that you attend and register for that. We'll be including registration information for both events in an email that will follow this session. So if you're curious about those events, and also Invent teams in Lemelson MIT will also share helpful information for those who want to bring the spirit of invention to your school or to your area. And if you're an attorney who was silently paying attention to this session, I hope you're inspired to support in the way that Mark is to help other student teams that are looking for support filing their patents. Finally, the recording of today's session will be posted on our YouTube channel and will later be available on our resource hub, which you will be able to find on the michelsonip.com website. We'll be including that link in potentially the chat, yes, in the chat, and in the email that will go out tomorrow. Additionally, if your organization wants to become part of the work that we do, focused on supporting the democratization of IP education and diversifying the innovation ecosystem, please reach out to me personally. My name is Chinwe, so CHINWE at 20millionminds, 20mm.org. It's possible that email is also being dropped in the chat. Feel free to reach out. You can stay engaged by signing up for our newsletter at our website to receive news and updates about our program, as well as other events. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. We hope you had a wonderful time. You found this information inspiring and useful, and hopefully we will see you at the next session. Have a wonderful rest of your day.